All right, listen up, Steam people. We're starting it off here. We're starting it off right. We are going to start it off serious here. As I'm sitting here, I'm in the Steam tunnels. We have convened. We got an important subject to go over today. It is June. It is Pride Month. We are here. We are here personally to destroy the nuclear family. We're here to destroy, American family values and everything else that gets in our way. Any traditional family values, they're going to be destroyed by us personally today. That's what's going to happen. But I want to start off with one serious note, because I have no idea who's listening to us out there and like who's within the sound of my voice. But I just want to say this much. If you are a fan of anything, I mean, really anything, but particularly if you're a fan of sci-fi, but if you're a fan of anything and you ever feel so entitled that you're going to drop into an actor or actresses or, performers DMs, strictly to drop N-bombs and all kinds of other bullshit, you're a terrible fucking human being. I'm just going to say that right now. Again, very controversial take. Really going out on a limb on that one there, but just, yeah, it's been that kind of a week. Been seeing a lot of that shit going on, and yeah, just wanted to, take that one moment in my voice just to say, yeah, no, that's garbage behavior. Don't do that. Like, reevaluate your life, reevaluate your entire priority set. I mean, again, probably not the boldest take. Probably can be accused of virtue signaling, but yeah, fuck that. Fuck those people.
I kind of feel like the people who are always falling back on the statement virtue signaling are kind of who you're talking to. So no worries, man.
Yeah, there is that. I do notice that. Yeah, that's usually
probably a Venn diagram. I really don't know if it's a complete circle.
It's tough. Yeah, it gets
probably looking at a Venn diagram.
They're always throwing shit like virtue signaling and and any quote, any little factoid that Jordan Peterson dropped that week.
Yeah.
the latter, maybe. The former, we have to be careful because technically we all virtue signal. It's action that you do. So to say all people who do that will include us. So I'm not sure you want to completely make that a circle. That's a Venn diagram. May include some people who do it in a venomous way.
I'm going to go ahead and say, fuck that guy. I'm going to say it was all right.
You could be looking in the mirror. That's my point.
I mean, but Greg, am I wrong in the people who are, you're saying that the people who point out virtue signaling as a negative thing and as a bad thing are usually the people who are doing the bad shit?
Oh, you're giving them way too much credit. I was saying that these people probably don't know what that actually means. I'm saying it's their way of sabotaging the argument.
There you go. Well, yeah, you're probably
part of my point that we all do it.
Yeah.
If we go by the definition, just for that, because I think part of the problem that we have in the world right now is that we have definitions and we have what we want to use whenever it makes us feel good. So I think to hold those idiots accountable, you actually have to call them out on what they're doing and be honest and clear about it so they actually can't escape it. Like, for example, you're right. There probably are people who Josh is talking about, very big part of the Venn diagram, who will also point to someone who says like, hey, don't bash on this person. And that idiot steps in like, well, you're virtue signaling. Yeah, they're probably doing that. But then we win by pointing out to the idiot who wants to bash someone for virtue signaling by saying, hey, guess what? What you just did was virtue signaling for yourself and the causes that you like to promote.
And I 100% agree with you, Rashawn. So there you go. I'm totally kissing up to you on that. I absolutely agree that I said that to someone to say, hey, you're talking about my virtue signaling and you're sending your virtue signals, right? We were talking about COVID and it's like you said, you're just virtue signaling. I said, well, you are too, right? You're saying, hey, I'm in shape. I can live through this, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, don't want to drag us too far down that rabbit hole, but what the hell? We got a venue. We got a voice. Wanted to use my voice for what little good I could. So fuck it. I don't care. What's up, Rashawn?
However, if you are going to attack an actor and hop into their DMs, all I'm going to say is James Woods has plenty of free time.
There is that.
just go to James Woods. I guarantee whatever you got to say about whoever you have to say it about, just say it to him and about him. You'll probably get way more out of it.
It's a good point. He will probably interact with you, but it is the Steam, gentlemen. We are here. It is June. And as I said, this is the month where, corporations change all of their logos to rainbows to try and, because they realize, wait a second, there are gay people out there. We want their money too. So let's make sure that we get their money wherever that is. But we have brought with us a very special guest, a fine, upstanding gentleman. That the first time you've been called that in a while, Mike?
I was going to say, hope this guy gets here soon.
a fine, upstanding gentleman who I grew up with in the fabulous Tony suburb of Wellesley, Massachusetts, no less. Swellesley to all the other surrounding towns, particularly to Rashawn there in Framingham, where he would probably have run roughshod over us there.
Work in Wellesley College for 2 straight summers too.
That's okay. That's a statement in and of itself. We could unpack that for a little while there. But we brought on Mike Gleason to join us there, a fellow Blockbuster veteran, guy who helped sling the videotapes to all sorts of just all sorts of humanity through the years. How you doing today, Mike?
Respect.
I am really well. It is awesome to be here, Josh. Good to hear your voice. And Rashawn and Greg, I am glad to finally meet you. I've been loving this podcast, and I love the way you guys look at media and popular culture and all things, whether or not it's zeitgeist or kitsch. I just like the way you have the reverence for it, and I'm really glad to be part of this today.
Oh, man.
Thank you. Welcome.
Right? You are giving us a case of the warm and fuzzies. That's fantastic, and that is honestly, there were a couple reasons why I thought of you, but without a doubt, that was the main reason why I thought, is I knew that you liked the show, and I knew that you would be down for the subject matter first and foremost. But I don't want to do my usual thing where Fink screws up the intros. So let me just keep rolling on for a second here and point out the 3 of clubs. You heard from him already, Mr. Rashawn Smith. I can say his name correctly, even if I can't spell it correctly all the time. I can certainly say it. Rashawn Smith, the 3 of clubs. How you doing today?
What it do? How do you do? Happy to be with all of you, and I'm very, very excited and fortunate to have Josh, to have friends like Mike, who's on the podcast now, so we can pick his brain. Because honestly, I am like a kid in a candy store right now, being told that I got $5 worth of penny candy that I get to choose, because I got 2 people that worked at Blockbuster, and growing up, seeing you guys as like the gatekeepers of all thing media. Like, I almost felt like sometimes I had to be cool, or I tried to get cool with the people behind the counter, so I maybe would get that new release when every single time we would come in and be sold out before Blockbuster went to like that 100 single of one new release that you guys did in the later years. But I honestly, between the 2 of you in the encyclopedic knowledge of videos that the 2 of you have, I'm way too giddy. So thank you for being here, Mike. Josh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, I'm sure it was the powder blue button-up shirts that we wore, Rashawn. That just was too cool.
Actually, I'm going to go on rant. So here I am. It was the general malaise of not giving a fuck about the person across the counter that every single Blockbuster employee had, that I loved so much. I loathed it sometimes. There are times I'm like, I hate you, fuck you. But at other times, like, how are you so comfortable with so much power and so much just you have it, like, just watch power. Sit behind the counter, look at someone like, oh well, guess what's no longer in stock, and just like pull a video back from a person and look at them like, go ahead and call the 800 number, call it, do it now, here's a phone, go ahead and call it. But guess what you're not doing? Watching this video tonight. It's like, oh my God, you have way too much power. This is way too cool. And they always look like they didn't care. That was the best part too. Like, I would probably be way too into it. I'd be giddy. I'd be all that. But no, I'm always looking at some 17-year-old kid who look like he could give a shit about ruining someone's life. I'm like, you just killed that little kid's weekend. He had a slumber party. There's 15 kids coming over there, all looking to try to watch Land Before Time. And you're looking at him like, I don't give a shit, kid. All the dinosaurs are dead anyway. Mwah. I love you guys.
That was intense.
I spent a lot of time at Blockbuster.
We tripped across some some therapy material there for Rashad, but
I think I
right.
still owe Nate Blockbuster like $50 for a late video game. I told him straight up, you ain't getting that money from me. And the guy looked at me like, do you think I give a shit? I make X amount of dollars an hour, kid. I'm just telling you what the bill is.
Well, I don't know if my next co-host here had quite the same awe and reverence for us fellow Blockbuster employees. I don't know if that quite went down that way. You know, between your 5 high schools and 16 junior high schools, Greg. I don't know. You know, I don't know if that was your style.
Greg could meet God and he wouldn't be impressed.
I don't think he'd be impressed. Exactly. He'd be like, you just showed up.
But it is. Stop that eternity, huh?
Yeah. But in fact, joining us here in the Steam Tunnels is none other than the star child himself, Mr. Gregory DeSense. How are you today, Greg?
I'm doing all right. Ready to do the time warp again.
Oh, just a jump to the left and a little step to the right. I knew it all. Actually, I did. Mike, I can say one thing. One reason I can still hang with you, Mike, is that I did used to go to Rocky Horror growing up. That was the coolest, dare I say, most avant-garde, close to gay thing I did.
That's if you grew up in a company in the 3W towns, Weston, Wayland, Wellesley, the real, smash the normative stuff was to say, I'm going to Rocky Horror when it was still in Harvard Square in Cambridge.
That was where we used to go.
And you're going to get up and do the time warp and all that and throw toast and rice and all those things. And all you varsity lacrosse players are going to spend the weekend, tightening the nets on your lacrosse sticks. And I am doing something crazy with college students. That was
I was a Rocky virgin. They pointed me out. I was the only one that night. So yes, I had to do the pelvic thrust several times, and the first couple of times,
wow.
Not going to lie, the form wasn't there.
Hot.
Oh boy.
Probably not there now.
I know. Truly scandalous.
I would say I feel seen about the lacrosse comment, but I only made to JV lacrosse, so I'm good.
Man.
Oh man.
Man.
Like a men's league, and you can get in. You can get higher up.
No. If you saw my last year of lacrosse, you would think that JV was probably kind. You're like, they gotta put him somewhere. Aw.
Rashawn was our football jock, and that definitely he brings the stories from the football field. We always know that, including his nickname, which I got to find out a little bit about this weekend. I won't bring it up though. I won't actually say it on air. I'll let you.
Every football player whose last name is Smith already knows what the nickname is. It's not even football. It's every sports. I met women who the last name is Smith and they got called Smith. It's all good. And don't worry, Mike, I wasn't good at football either. I just played that a little bit longer. So we're all good here. No one's really that much of a star. Actually, Josh is an exceptional man. He's an Adonis. And Greg, he gave me a nice big powerful hug on Friday. I don't know what that was about, man. Someone's been sneaking in those workouts.
Adonis.
Now I'm feeling the pressure to live up to that. But keeping it here, it is June. That means it is LGBTQ plus. Do we add the plus, Mike? I'm asking you like
we do
right now. Okay, you get to be the full-on ambassador today, and I get to run all my language right. Though I got to tell you, Mike, I'm looking at you, and I respect that the Q is in there. But I still feel weird saying it because growing up, I fully admit we didn't say it as a compliment back then. And I like, that's the one thing that I'm like, have the harder time getting my head around sometimes. But, again, want to make everybody feel comfortable. And if anyone describes themselves as a queer, totally fine by me. It just was, like I said, I feel bad still because I know so much how I said it growing up, particularly being from Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I want to answer that in order. Someone made a comment, maybe it was Facebook, and they said LGBTQ plus is plus like Paramount Plus or Disney Plus, and yep, and
feeling it.
instead of here's your sign, I actually, and I don't do Schadenfreude and snobby stuff. I was sort of like, LGBTQ plus means you get premium free parking in Provincetown,
Right,
and you can walk
yeah.
up to Elder Dennis and tell her that she is both a headache and a complete setback. So yes, that's LGBTQ plus.
That is amazing. Yeah, totally. You get no ads.
No ads, free delivery.
Exactly.
Right? It's like all the perks.
Only thing
God,
left was telling the guy you need to pay him pay you $20 a month.
Right, $20 a month.
That's
right. It's actually. I was going to say, within sociology, there's gay studies, and there's like debates. Is it queer pride? Is it gay pride? Is it okay for men of a certain generation to call themselves fags? Because you could go to an asylum for engaging in faggotry. That was the derisive terms, like sodomy. And some guys call themselves the F-bomb, and I don't. I'm just, me and my husband are just two gay guys. I don't really, and we're like I don't shave my body hair or anything, so we're technically bears in that respect. But I'm just kind of gay in a general sense. I don't do any like sub-genres like the gym bunnies or something.
Yeah,
it's an interesting, but yeah, some people say I am queer, and so some folks will say, because there were folks who are non-binary and transgender in the Stonewall riots in June of '69. So it's people of a certain generation will still say queer pride, and I'm okay with it, so long, it's sort of like, if you say I'm of the Jewish faith or Jewish extraction, versus saying, using Jew as can also be a very serious slur as someone who haggles for money, who haggles over retail prices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So I just stick with gay because it's a synonym for happy.
I mean, I'm glad you say that. I'm glad you say that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought it was done.
My punchline was, and I saw this in a bumper sticker a few years ago: better a gay marriage than a sad marriage.
Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I was gonna say I'm glad you said that, because out of everyone I know, no one can agree on what letters belong in the LGBTQIA and what each of them mean, and have their own reasons for whichever one they assign to. And I think that's probably like, one of the greatest signs of respect. Once people, respect that, you're not a monolith, like you've definitely gotten somewhere socially. And I'm glad that you threw that in, because there's a lot of intense debate surrounding that, and it's, so I think that's the part of it that kind of, makes me kind of step around it a little bit, because you're surprised. Even if you throw in I think the longest one is like 12 letters, there's still debate around that. Yeah, I think it is. The longest one is like 12 letters.
So Mike,
because I was told you could actually, yes, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I was just, part of what we were excited to have you on was just really wanted you to talk a little bit about, well, you can tell any stories that you remember. I always thought I was relatively quiet at Blockbuster, but no, you can tell any stories you remember from the Blockbuster days. But I was curious about growing up gay in the 80s and the 90s when we met, also working in that video store. And, since the whole centerpiece of the show is pop culture and social commentary, I kind of want to get your impressions about what that was like, and what we're focusing a little on film today. So movies that influenced you, movies that showed, that spoke to you or didn't, or just, kind of want to get a little bit, hear from you a little bit about what that was like.
Sure. I'm glad you I'm absolutely humbled to be here, and I really appreciate this.
We're humbled to have you.
So thank you. So my undergraduate degree is in communications journalism. So I took a course called Media in America in '94, second semester freshman year. And my advisor, Dr. Zenner, may he rest in peace, was telling us all about the Hays Code, Hays code. And from, I think it's like the mid 30s, like the Depression, up through 1968. And you can tell with Sam Peckinpah and Roman Polanski, like they totally took advantage of what their shooting scripts were after the Hays Code ended. You can see the changes. What would happen is during the Hays Code years, guys like Rock Hudson actually there was a woman living in his mansion who was actually like his legally married wife. I don't know if it was legal, I don't think they were married by clergy, like they might have been married by like a city clerk or something. And that way, at Hollywood events, off the record, Rock Hudson would be there with whoever he was dating, whoever his partners were or partner was. The same with Liberace and the chauffeur and everything. But these guys were eligible bachelors and confirmed bachelors. And so Rock Hudson had to, I forget the woman's name, but she was like Rock's wife. And she would like get dolled up and get her hair up and put on a nice dress and jewelry. And Rock would get in the limousine with her and they'd go to a screening of one of his films. And they would come out arm in arm and he'd do the photo, press the flash there on the red carpet. And then as soon as that was all over and the flash bulbs went off, he went back to whoever his partner was. And she went and just whatever she had other planned for the rest of the day. And the same thing, the other thing about the Hays Code was that the directors got wise and the screenwriters got wise, especially because also McCarthy and the Hollywood 8 happened during the Hays Code. So and guys like Dalton Trumbo got blacklisted. So what they ended up doing was they decided to bury innuendo into movies. So by saying that, if you go and watch Rebel Without a Cause, and there is James Dean and Sal Mineo, and that is like ridiculously homoerotic. If you open up like their lockers and because they're high school students.
Yeah, it is.
When they open their lockers, there's pictures of like beefcakes.
Yeah.
And bodybuilders, and there's a scene where Sal puts on James Dean's jacket, and he's all agog and entrenched and enmeshed in it. It's this really beautiful thing for him. And yeah, having been in love with, and having had crushes on straight guys, in a Chasing Amy sort of way, that yeah, I could have, someone who's closeted would like completely appreciate that scene. The other thing was, it's considered transphobic now, but drag, not so much Monty Python's, but the other Hays Code stuff, they use drag and sissies and effeminate men as a punchline to a joke. They did the same thing with blaxploitation as well. When African Americans only played maids and butlers and Uncle Remus type characters, it's the same thing with that as well. But anyways, what they ended up doing was they would get around. So yeah, you have the film adaptation of Auntie Mame is just like a Provincetown parade essentially. But yet you go watch it anyways, no idea what's happening. And Liberace's outfits would be completely gaudy and so forth. And people didn't understand why he didn't have a wife. And yeah, seriously. And yeah. The other thing was, the other thing that goes on, and there's a painfully serious book by a professor called The Celluloid Closet, and there's a film, the documentary version. Celluloid Closet goes back to like the early 80s, just before AIDS. The AIDS crisis really proliferated, so it really stands alone. Because I want to get into cinema and AIDS in a second, but they would always use gay men as sissies. That woman who, she went into like a woman's prison or an all-women's hotel, and the entrance, because they couldn't say lesbian or bisexual, she just went and lived in a women's hotel or a women's-only apartment building, and that was the entrance. And that's what you were stuck with. And the other thing was, they would use, and the most notorious is Alfred Hitchcock's adaptation of the novel Psycho, and that they're at the end explaining, and Tony Perkins, may he rest in peace, he died of HIV complications. He made it as a closeted actor. He played Norman, who's, isn't he crazy? He wears women's clothing. He must be a murderer. And that goes all the way through, even though the Hays Code ended in like, I just looked at Wikipedia, it ended in 1968. So up through like Basic Instinct and The Silence of the Lambs, gays were killers, transvestites were killers. And it's not that there's going to be cancel culture over it, but it's a sort of like, by today's standards, that's almost libel or almost slander. The other thing about film in after the Hays Code was when we talk about documentaries, ask me about cinema verity, because reality TV had a lot to do with getting gay awareness out there. But back to films, there's film adaptations of The Boys in the Band, which is a one-act play about gay men in Greenwich Village in the early 60s. Yeah. And then there's a film adaptation of The Ritz, which is about the hotel, which is about the bathhouses. And the character Doogie Gomez is actually loosely based on Bathhouse Bette Midler, because that's where she got her start as an entertainer in men's bathhouses and men's-only hotels. The other thing was they, instead of saying, you mean he's queer, as we were saying, queer is a derisive term, that love that dare not speak its name and all the rest of it, make your parents, leave the room and so forth. My parents were more Catholic than the Pope, so they would like, Michael, leave the room, you can't watch this. And that's how
but I want to watch it, Mom.
Mom, I want to watch it. Don't you dare. And what ended up happening was NBC, I want to say it was NBC Television, they had a made-for-TV movie called An Early Frost. And it was this art imitates life of guys who had to come home to tell their parents, not come out of the closet, but tell them, I've got AIDS. They switched because there weren't HIV tests. They weren't at they didn't come available in pharmacies, and they didn't become over the counter until the mid to late 90s. So you just went and got tested, and they would like count your, God bless the early AIDS patients. They just would count your T cells, and the sarcoma and the pneumonia and everything. So this poor guy has to, in the movie An Early Frost, the guy's got to go home and tell the parents, not I'm gay or I have a boyfriend or some such thing, but that he has AIDS. And I remember my parents, it was like a Sunday night because that's like the big time slot, Thursday and Sunday nights are the two big time slots. My parents would not let me watch it. And then to be bold and radical, I don't know the story behind how they greenlit the screenplay that became Philadelphia, but Philadelphia is about 7 or 8 years after that. And at that point on television, there were gay characters on like 90210 and Melrose Place and all those shows. They had openly gay characters, and 30-something had a gay character and all the other stuff. So they were finally putting it in the movies post Hays Code, where Tom Hanks and I think Benicio not Del Toro, but another Spanish-speaking actor plays his partner, and they had to show. They finally put the Banderas.
Yes,
thank you.
It's Antonio Banderas. Yeah.
Thank you. And if you were not, that movie, Schindler's List and In the Name of the Father, which is about Northern Ireland, the Troubles in Northern Ireland, all came out around the same time in late 93 and early 94. And like, if you were not crying at the end of those movies, you're probably a clinical sociopath.
Yeah.
But then the backlash was the real LGBT protesters would say, why does Tom Hanks, his wife is a producer, they have a son, Colin Hanks, and Antonio Banderas, who identifies as, he's played gay characters in a Pedro Almodovar movie, but why are straight actors playing gay? And then 11, 12 years after Philadelphia was Brokeback Mountain, which again, if you're not crying at the end, you're probably a horrible person. Like that's Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger played they couldn't go to New York City or San Francisco. They were stuck in the American heartland as a closeted couple. And so I'm like really psyched that all that awareness is out there now. It's not just awareness, it's like it's in the mainstream narrative. But my point is, look at that progress when we went from that latent homoerotica or the subtle homoerotica, the Keep It Gay song from the Mel Brooks movie, the producers, all the gay innuendo Mel Brooks would put in. He actually put it in as a joke, and everyone was in on it. But sissies and fairies were always like a joke. And now we had Philadelphia and Early Frost, and we have Brokeback Mountain. And a lot of people are like, why did it take, from whenever the first movie came out and the first motion picture was made around 1900 or something to 2000, why did it take about 100 years to make gay and lesbian life seem mainstream again? And subsequently, you can see Brokeback Mountain's effect on shows on other television shows like Modern Family. They had Modern Family was now saying, yes, you probably have a gay aunt or uncle, and we're going to television's finally going to include the gay lesbian couples. And like Adam Sandler, his film Big Daddy is like this rather intelligent, it's an oddly intelligent film. And in it is a gay couple, and they're like, I think they end up being like the godparents or something, or they end up like babysitting, and they're like nice, like babysitters for the kid. And I don't know if when Happy Madison greenlit Big Daddy, were they consciously doing that as like a statement of, hey, we work in Hollywood and we've got gay friends.
Wait. I'm gonna back you up there. I'm gonna hold you up for a second, Mike. Are you saying they're gay and they're nice? Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that can happen.
Listen, I was a grumpy on the case when we were working together, and I'm really sorry if I was.
I honestly don't remember that at all. I don't remember you that way in the slightest. But it's more just still sometimes, when I even hearing you talk, I've been only tangentially related. I've been watching a lot of George Carlin lately because I watched the documentary on him, and he was talking about the language of the days back in the early 90s, and he would say, talk about people would call him, he's openly gay, and just how Carlin found that kind of funny and silly all at the same time of like, well, do you call someone openly black? What are we doing this here for? What are we saying here?
Sadly, I can tell you that, yeah, some people will say that.
We'll still say that. Do they still say happens to be black? That was the other thing he was
saying. There's a lot of those combinations that are still out there, and it's still fun to come across. And whenever it does, it's like, oh, great. So it's that kind of day. Great.
Oh, it's that kind of day. You mean he had two black parents? Oh my God.
Wow.
So both your parents went to college? Were they royalty? Were they part of Zamunda?
What scholarships were they on? Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but Mike, I did want to.
That's like a legit. No, it's okay.
Oh, I did want to say I wanted to thank you though, because you reminded me of An Early Frost, and I remember seeing that movie, and I will say it's interesting because my mom, well, she converted to Judaism from my father, and then there was like really no formal education beyond that, and really her religion was Shirley MacLaine. Also has a little bit of cross back to the gays. Let's be honest. For doing
she
that.
Totally does.
Yeah, no, but that wasn't even necessarily her attraction to it. She just sort of liked the going through life after life and the not really having to take responsibility for any of your behavior part of it. So she was all into that. But
best shit ever.
Oh, wow.
To her credit, though, I remember she encouraged me. Though I down my mother a lot. I tease her a lot. She's my mom. She made, mistakes were made. It happens. I get it. I'm making my own mistakes with my own kids, but she encouraged me to watch An Early Frost. Much different, even interestingly enough, like it's such an interesting juxtaposition for me because here you were, and here was the truth about you. And as you said, your parents were Catholic as the day is long, right? And we're shooing you out of the room, trying to hide that subject matter from you. And here was my mom saying, we should sit down and we should watch this movie because it's important, because it's happening, because it's going on. I still don't remember, I probably had some idea of what it all meant. I just remember, that fortunately enough, even though I teased my mom, she was willing enough to talk to me about the idea of same-sex couples and the idea that, a man can love a man and a woman can love a woman. Right. And that was before I really even had a handle on what sex was or what anything was going on there. So some of it was very academic, but it at least set me up for the concept of, oh, this does happen. This is a thing. This exists. I was saying earlier before the show that I remember a Harry Hamlin film that I can't even remember when I actually saw it, but I remember the preview and I remember asking my mom about it. It was called Making Love. And the whole the whole idea in the movie is that Harry Hamlin he's the love interest. I don't even think he's the husband, but the husband is having an affair with another man. And the wife finds out about it, of course, which, there's some trauma there and there's some things going on. And you can kind of unpack. But I remember that being the sort of first moment of my really becoming aware that there was something else out there, that something else was going on, because I remember watching the commercial with her and I was really confused because I'm like, so what's the big deal? Like, he's hanging out with his friend. And I was like, no, there's a little bit more to it than that. There's a little bit more going on from that. And I think it's just interesting to see. And that was a pretty revolutionary film for its time. That's like 1983, 84. When that comes out, and that really pushes some things to the mainstream. It really pushes some stuff to the fore, coming outright in front of it, saying, hey, here's a man, he's married to a woman, maybe confused, maybe bisexual. Can't really remember the plot points, honestly, but that this was happening and this was a thing. And I am grateful, as much as I do tease my mother, I'm grateful I had a mom who was willing to talk to me about it, really, and just explain what was what, and just saying, hey, this is how some people love. And that, by the way, is okay. She also told me very early on, people are born this way, and that is their inclination, and that's where that comes from. And never demonized or made it some kind of deviant behavior or something that somebody did wrong to anybody else. So, to that extent, by just that happenstance between those films that you were talking about there. Also, La Cage aux Folles. Got to give a shout out to La Cage aux Folles, because I remember watching it and reading the subtitles, everything in French. I think that was after all of that, but just and just the hilarity and hijinks, of course, of trying to and it gives a nod to what you were talking about earlier, right? Because one of the partners does dress up in drag, right? It's part of a drag show. It's part of everything there, but it really opened up this entirely different point of view to it. Now, just to throw in one more strange ass juxtaposition, my father, whom was never really very good with these things at all. I remember him complaining about Rock Hudson when he was diagnosed with AIDS as quote unquote, and he was quote unquote playing kissy face. This was a direct quote from my father. Like, okay, then, and a man who knew better, and a man who had all kinds of trouble. And in the end, what I used to argue with him, it used to just went back to don't know, don't like it, and that was one of the very few things he said. Nevertheless, this man showed me the film Cabaret with Joel Grey about Berlin.
Holy wow.
And he loved Cabaret. Like, that was the weirdest sort of kind of contradiction of it all, right? He loves Liza Minnelli in Cabaret, and Joel Grey, and the whole 9 yards. So it's a pretty wild thing what cinema can do, right? What venues it can open up for you and what it can teach you.
Great. I'm sorry. Please keep going.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was done there.
No, it's cool. The other thing I just remembered at Blockbuster, it finally caught up to me. La Cage aux Folles Blockbuster had La Cage aux Folles, and I believe they had the Robin Williams, Gene Hackman, Nathan Lane Birdcage.
I think by the end of it, sure.
Because Birdcage is set in the French Riviera, and I'm sorry, La Cage aux Folles is in the French Riviera, with the butler being from like Congo or something, or a French-speaking African country, and then when the American adaptation, Birdcage is in Miami or South Beach or something, and the Hank Azaria, one of my favorite actors and one of my favorite big influence on me from the time on The Simpsons, plays Agador, and he's from Latin America, and he plays it perfectly. But I remember in La Cage aux Folles, the guy can't handle wearing shoes, and that end scene with the spoiler alert, with the wedding at the end with the son and daughter getting married, there's a swipe at the Catholic clergy right in that scene, about all the number of gay and bisexual men who go into the priesthood because they were going to do that instead of finding a nice woman to settle down with. And my Brian and I were like, yeah, if it was 40 years ago, we probably would have gone to seminary, and we would probably, if you were in like Boston or New York or Philadelphia, one of the Catholic cities, and there's two priests just living in an apartment together and not in a monastery or a rectory, it means they were a couple. They just hadn't been defrocked yet.
Well,
Yeah, totally true.
well,
that's a
Mike, you may not realize that, but you do the best segue ever there for me to bring you over to Greg, because if we're going to talk about taking swipes at the Catholic Church
Well,
and gays in cinema, that is absolutely the best way I could ever introduce the Star Child on that one, Greg. I think this is right in your wheelhouse, man.
Of
take
course.
it, Star Trek.
Oh no, Rashawn had something to say. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, since we're going through the 80s and different media properties, Mike, what's your feeling about the TV show, the sitcom My Two Dads? Because even as an 8-year-old, I was looking at that like, yeah, those are definitely that's definitely a couple. Like, you can tell me what you want, but that's definitely a couple. Same thing with Full House. Watching that, because when you brought up the Hays Code, which I absolutely love and adore that you brought that up, because I mean, man, if you want to be the fourth member of TSG, you definitely have put it in for the application, because the Hays Code alone sent me into this tangent of thinking like, okay, what's a scientific property similar to that, which would be the butterfly effect, which is when chaos theory happens, one significant or insignificant change can lead to a complete different expected outcome. A lot of times when you see it in sci-fi, they use it for like time travel, but in fact, butterfly effect can even be used for things like predicting the weather. So technically, what are people who predict the weather? I'm losing all sorts
meteorologists.
of. Thank you.
That's what you're looking for. There we go.
My
I'm
parents,
good. I'm good
so,
for that.
Yep.
My parents are so proud they sent me to college. But but even meteorologists, they use basically the idea of a butterfly effect to even predict what the weather is going to be in a week, a month, and even as far out as a year, to try to figure out how to handle our upcoming weather patterns and climate. Why do I bring that up? Is because even when they understand that, they know that even the slightest change that they didn't foresee can drastically affect what's coming up in the future to profound effect. And I liken that to the Hays Code, because as you brought up, the innuendo that had to be skipped into things to get around what was obviously happening, which were human beings just being human beings. And the fact that they had to just start to code it and hide it, and like you said, innuendo into movies. Like, for example, you brought Rebel Without a Cause. I'll go back to an episode we had at TSG with Lost Boys, and the fact that as I'm watching it as an adult, I'm totally understanding or coming to a dawn breaking over Marblehead of how is it this teenage boy has nothing but posters of men on his wall, scantily clad. No one says a thing. And the more I think about it, that was very prevalent in the early to mid 80s. It was not unforeseen for you to walk into a boy's room, not have any thought of any sort of sexual focus one way or the other, but see nothing but like scantily clad men all over the room, and no one will even walk out of that room thinking, oh, this guy might not like women. No, not even close. So because of years and years of the Hays Code being moved into innuendo to being subterfuge, like what you pointed out with Rebel Without a Cause, I would argue that most of the 80s was a good amount of that, to the point where even the quote unquote macho men thought that they were being macho by like, oh yeah, I'm macho. I have Rob Lowe up on my wall, who's barely dressed. Mm-hmm. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you have that? And it just kind of cracked me up how that was also a very highly homophobic moment. So then we kick out TV shows and products like Full House or My Two Dads, where they're trying to get the public to think like, oh yeah, sure, this is normally what we see. We normally see two guys who are well within their dating age to have no real reason. They clearly are making a lot of money. They clearly can do well for themselves. Somehow make sure that they are never dating anyone and they're always next to each other and they're raising a child. Or same thing with Full House, like, oh, sure, One of them's your best friend, one of them's your uncle. Okay, cool. But you're not really related? Yeah, got it. Cool. Because that sounds like a couple to me, but whatever. So I just wondered how you felt about some of those TV shows, even Bosom Buddies.
That was the one I was going to throw out to you, Rashad. Thank you for remembering. Bosom Buddies, man. Big time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because I remember. All right. I want to do that in order. I could swear the inference on My Two Dads was that they didn't know which one was the biological father. So the two guys were taking, were like co-parenting.
Yeah.
Pre-Modern
that's
Family
what they
with
tried to
Lily.
tell us.
Mitch and Mitchell, Cameron, and Lily. It was like this 20 some odd years before. The thing that I remember watching it and liking it, and it was the same 18 minutes of video plus 12 minutes of commercials, and life's problems were solved at the end of the 30 minutes, just like on the Brady Bunch, and Robert Reed was in the closet, and and all these other closet actors who'd been on these shows playing straight roles. I always thought I didn't see the gay inference, and it was funny because it went on the air around the same time as the Golden Girls, and gay men love Golden Girls because they are kind of like a lot of gay men call their close intimate friends their girlfriends or their sisters, and so they go have brunch or go out for cheesecake or something, and they get mouthy, and you have a friend who's kind of like B. Arthur, who just says who's like the cautious naive one, the kind of trampy one, the one who just says whatever she's thinking. And I thought that was a very gay show, and I think even Logo to this day still plays it regularly. The other Lost Boys, and then Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, I remember, oh my gosh, Kiefer Sutherland in Lost Boys was like just beautiful. He was just beautiful, and Donald Sutherland's certainly one of my favorite actors anyways, but Kiefer Sutherland, just the eye candy, with all the costumes and everything that he had, that the vampires wore. I thought that was just phenomenal. And then if you watch the 1992 Bram Stoker's Dracula, there's a scene where Keanu Reeves' character cuts himself with a straight razor. Gary Oldman's Dracula starts licking the straight razor. And it is, and I think later Gary Oldman and Keanu were like, yeah, that's like this 30 seconds on the reel of my own private Idaho just went to Bram Stoker's Dracula for 30 seconds. And that was the other thing it was my own private Idaho was kind of like, it's based on the titles from the B-52 song, and the B-52's Fred never hid that he's gay. Same way Freddie Mercury never denied being bisexual and everything. But yeah, that's just like the most latent stuff that you had there. And then the joke is things like the Lifetime TV movies we call it Lifetime television for gay men, because all the ex-husbands in those films are needy and jerks, and they're stalking you, and they are icky, and that's kind of like a really creepy ex. So there. The other stuff, and even after the Hays Code, there was interesting stuff. If you watch Saturday Night Fever, I actually heard John Travolta was on NPR. I think there's a show on NPR called Fresh Air, and Terry Gross is like this really good broadcast journalist, and she asked him a couple of really pointed questions, and one of them was about the costuming, and he said, yeah, we went into the men's clothing stores in Greenwich Village, right off Christopher Street or Mott Street or whatever in Manhattan, and we were looking at clothes that were 2 and 3 years out of style for the gay guys. And we thought that Saturday Night Fever was going to be this film about, just a kid coming of age in New York, and he wants to dance and everything. And in reality, it's all those clothes were what gay guys were wearing in like 1973 and 74 at Studio 54. And that stuff, like gay guys were already out off of, or getting away from open collared shirts and disco outfits. And that just shows you like the influence that, for the fashion consciousness, and just, the gay men, we have have a tendency to have more discretionary income. I just finished grad school, so I don't, But the reason why we have the discretionary income to shop at Barney's, Brooks Brothers, Banana Republic, which is owned by Gap brands, and you tend to see the nicer clothes because there's a tendency, more guys are adopting now, but there is a tendency to go get those nicer designer clothes or custom clothes, and that's sort of that little wink or that illusion that goes on in Saturday Night Fever, and I think everyone kind of missed it. But John Travolta, I know there's rumors about him, and I have no idea if they're true or not. But he got away from Danny from Grease, and he got away from Barbarino just fine with that movie, and he did it very well. And I think he captured, the '70s and gay men and the lesbian couples, the self identities were finally coming into their own. And I think it was just a very well done film in that respect.
Well, I won't go too far down with the John Travolta possibilities, because that brings me to Scientology. And then
Oh boy,
don't ask these guys will are already rolling their eyes like, oh shit, Fink's going off about Scientology again. Oh shit, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna hear all about L. Ron Hubbard.
One day they'll take your application, Josh. You
I'm
just
gonna
keep
hear all
trying,
about,
buddy.
Just wait.
Motherfuckers. I know they're storing weapons. I know that's where the shit starts to go down. I have my whole
DNU will not forget about you.
Oh man, the e-readers, all that shit. Nah.
Well, just real fast with the Hays Code, and the reason why I got super excited and I definitely fumbled over my ability to push it out is I just love how, one, that you brought it up, two, the reason why, but also three, what ends up happening to our heteronormative, completely controlling, masculine dominated sort of culture, where we think we can tap things down and we think we're so smart about it, but what ends up happening is when you push it down, it gets filtered out into all these different channels that's almost impossible to either stop or pay attention to. So it gets to the point where like these idiots end up actually promoting what they try to stop. To me it's no different than like racists raising kids in the 60s and 70s and now have grandchildren and great grandchildren that do not look very much like them or the people that came over on the boat a couple of generations before them.
Interesting point. Yeah.
Well, with that, I do actually, I want to bring it back, since I did promise to swipe at the clergy, through our very own Star Child. Through our very own Star Child's eyes. And in all fairness, Star Child was the one who brought this subject to us and said, hey, I really want to go for it here in June and on LGBTQ plus, and any letters I'm leaving out, I sincerely apologize for sure. I still want the plus though. I still want that free parking space you were talking about earlier, Mike. That's no bullshit, man. Good parking down in Provincetown. I don't care what's going on, man.
That's a thing.
That's a thing, man. That's a
Josh, you didn't read the fine print. It's Providence where you got the free parking.
Oh man,
that's gonna be a hell of a commute to P-Town, buddy.
I thought I was gonna make it out there. Some oysters that gets the good Wellfleet oysters.
Oh, you'll get oysters in Providence.
Oh yeah, all right, fair enough. Some stuffies, we all saw that, but. Wanted to get in on the I wanted to get the Star Child's thoughts in here and what he brought to the table here, since I know this is an important subject to him. So Star Child, how you doing?
I'm feeling all right, man. I'm ready to come in second if I can.
You got it. Go for it.
Because I mean, again, reason I wanted to do movies because I figured we could just hit off like one important branch of it. But I mean, we touched on TV and other things just now. So, but I'm probably going to stick to movies because I never worked at Blockbuster, but I was that guy that got compliments from the Blockbuster employees because game recognized game. So,
because you were Greg, of course you got compliments from the Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah, of course. Because I will drop that Kurosawa right on your counter, motherfucker. So I wanted to touch on the movies that I'll say, changed my view, but I do want to touch on movies that I think did it right, had something at least kind of important to say, because, I flatter myself. I consider myself an ally. I've got an army of my people. And I do my best to voice and represent and advocate. And these are movies that I would tell anyone to see, because I feel like now you get a swath. Like you get a swath of gay characters, you get a swath of gay media, and I think you can definitely find something either way that you would be interested in, and will speak to you, from like indies to big budget. So I'm going to start with probably one most people haven't heard of, Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Oh, come on
yeah.
now.
Hedwig and the Angry Inch, anybody? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Come on,
I know
man.
it. I've just never seen it.
Oh, you got to see Hedwig and the
Never
Angry
seen
Inch. Let me get you
I
there.
know.
It's a musical.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think Neil Patrick Harris played the live. I think there was a theater version, and I think Neil Patrick Harris played the main character.
I just remembered he did. It was just in the past. It was pre-COVID, pre-Trump, so it was like the 2000 teens or something.
Yeah, it was like yeah, exactly, around that period. And it's absolutely amazing. I love it because it's brilliant because it's painfully honest, and it's brilliant because it's hilarious but satirical at the same time, and it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart, and you will be singing the entire time. It's an incredible movie. In case you don't know the basic synopsis of it, it's about a young man who lives on the wrong side of the Berlin Wall during the Cold War. And he's, that was happening. And he has a botched sex change operation that leaves him with a inch, just a lump.
Oh my
God.
God.
And in the film, the movie, it's not just about finding yourself in a trite, Disney movie sort of way. It is about how hard it is to really build from the foundation your humanity, especially someplace where no one, even the people who are the most sympathetic, really have no clue. And that makes it twice as dangerous. And the whole time he's dealing with this kind of fear, but he's fighting against it, and he's being really brave. And at the same time, she finally comes around. She discovers that at the end of the day, through this really painful journey, I don't want to give away too much, through this really painful journey, that she has also been adding to a lot of other people's trauma. And so because of that, her and her group, her band, her group and other people around her end up telling her story through songs and flashbacks, and just how painful that journey of self-discovery is for her. And it's amazing. It honestly is amazing. It's got everything. It's got music, it's got wigs, it's got communists. I mean, what else do you want from a movie?
It sounds like Cabaret was generation. It sounds like Gen X went and did their own version of Cabaret.
Right? Almost. It's really, it's really low budget. It's really low budget. They did afford some animation, which was really great. It was really great. They could afford some animation, but apart from that, it's low budget. It's low budget, but it's an amazing movie. I 100% recommend it. You touched on Philadelphia. I'm only going to say a quick thing about Philadelphia. I definitely agreed with that point about why they didn't have gay characters playing the main part, obviously. But that's an important point. But to watch the movie, it is not an ignorantly made film. Like they're not at all. No, not at all. You don't feel in one instance that they're pandering to any particular group. Sometimes you could feel like they're trying to fit too much in, like I feel like today, this would definitely be a TV series or mini series, like I feel like now all of the dynamics you're trying to give all of these characters and all of the nuance and all of the language and then the technical side of everything that's happening in the court and everything that was happening medically with the main character. I think they would give it a lot more space now. So I don't know, maybe they should make it into a movie. But other than feeling like it's a little too condensed, I thought it was a really brilliant movie. I thought it was a well-made film at a time when definitely in my world, in my circle, there was a lot of homophobia. To finally have a mainstream movie with two big characters, especially, there's a lot of there could be a lot of homophobia in the Black and Caribbean communities. Denzel Washington's in it. Now what? What? Go ahead. Go ahead. I fucking dare you. I fucking dare you. You go ahead. You say Denzel did something wrong. I dare you. He was Malcolm. All right. I dare you to say that Denzel did something wrong. So it was like a really good, weapon to have. Like I finally felt like I had something, really heavy that I could throw back at the homophobes. It was really great. It was helpful.
Well, I know. Lenny, that is something to throw back.
Was
He's
that?
actually, there's a stage play called When the Chickens Come Home to Roost, which is Malcolm X was still in the Nation of Islam. And there's a brief period from the assassination of President Kennedy, when he said it. I don't know if Elijah Muhammad approved it or not. I honestly don't remember that from his autobiography, but he got in hot water for saying it because he was like going to like panel discussions, and he would say, he gave these amazing speeches and really, got so much consciousness brought to the mainstream. But anyways, Denzel Washington played Malcolm X in the 80s on, I don't know if it was on Broadway or not, but it was called When the Chickens Come Home to Roost, and he'd been playing him for years.
Yeah.
And so he just reprised the role essentially.
Oh yeah. And
I wonder why it was so good.
Right. And
other than being Denzel.
Denzel.
Yeah. Exactly. He was Malcolm. Yeah, end of story. You can't question what Denzel did.
Which, by the way, public service announcement, we all are saying Denzel wrong. Look it up.
Oh,
okay.
It's true.
Denzel.
How do you say it?
Honestly, I forgot because as soon as I heard it, I'm like, look, man, I'm not trying to disrespect you, but you literally been Denzel 42 years of my life. I don't know if I can change it. And he even he corrects it every once in a while when he wants to be a little piffy, but even he will go with Denzel. So it's kind of like, your mom will call you Clay. I'm gonna call you Clay.
I'm gonna call you Clay. That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, he just mama called him Clay. That's exactly what I was thinking right there.
I know I'm bad. I know I'm not a good person. Like, if I ever meet the guy, I'm just gonna call him Mr. Washington and just save it.
Yeah, just go with sir.
Yeah,
sir.
Just go with sir.
I'll probably just be crying if I ever met the guy. Just literally just be balls of emotions. It won't even matter.
Right. But yeah, another one I wanted to touch on, movie that hit me because I had to have a sit down with some friends about this one. They had to walk me through Moonlight. Ooh. They had to walk me through Moonlight.
Wow.
Moonlight.
Oh my God, Moonlight. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Moonlight. Because they come at it from a couple of different directions, and I loved how they framed the relationship between, because it's true, sometimes those relationships, especially those early gay relationships, come out of nowhere, because especially young men, it's like you're building such barriers, and you're trying so hard to be so masculine and more masculine than the next teenage boy. And for the shocker in Moonlight, I don't want to give away the whole movie, but when it happened, I was kind of like, well, that was sudden. I didn't see it happening. And then I was like, well, what happened, what passed between them? Was that really enough for him to have this sort of affinity for him? And a friend of mine opened up about his first relationship with a boy when he was in high school. And he was saying how it was a relationship in passing. And I thought that was an amazing statement. And I said, and because his point was when you're going to have these sort of clandestine relationships, you don't always get the choice of how it's going to manifest. More often than not, you don't. And you don't want to give it up. you don't want to give it up. You don't know if you're ever going to get this opportunity again, or you're too scared to try to create another opportunity again. So you do it. And I was like, shit, really? Because like 20 years pass in this film. Like, I mean, they kind of jump from being teenage boys to adults. And I'm like, really? A hand job on the beach? Like, come on, man. Like, what's the big deal? You know? But he, you know, I do like to test my blind spot. So I was like, is that something? And I was like, and he told me, like, the thing I'm not appreciating is, you know, after you have a random hookup with a girl, you can tell the world. And then you can try to make that random hookup happen over and over and over again. But for a young Black boy, especially not a cool kid, and he has this meeting with this other young man who, relative to him, was a cool kid. It was like, yes, it would probably be one of the greatest moments of his life, because this is a moment to express with another person. And he said, I mean, what can I say to that? I had to I have to shut the fuck up. I'm like, damn, you know, that's something I genuinely can't appreciate. And, you know, thank you for it. So I had to watch the movie again, this time appreciating it on that other level. You know what I mean? Like, I needed him to kind of show me what it was about this meeting between these two young boys that would create that powerful a connection with each other, you know?
Oh my gosh, that's
anybody there?
And I was gonna say, well, here no, I fainted. I remember Moonlight came out, and it must have been grad school or other obligations. I ended up missing it, and I just never got it through the streaming services. And people told me that it's a painfully serious movie.
It is. It is a very serious movie.
And there is. People go through, whether it's, you know, whenever you notice your first same-sex attraction, to college or your adult life, whatever, where you've got to change pronouns. Not the transgendered pronouns, but like, are you dating someone? Yes, I'm dating her. And like, people would say to me, oh, you've never, you know, you're not at Roger Williams, you didn't have any girlfriends. I never met the right one. And yeah, they were very, there was 3 guys I had like off and on boyfriends through college. And if you were in a we were in Rhode Island, but you know, so it's not a conservative place, but you know, and there was the school campus had an LGBA, which I was actually part of my junior and senior years, but if you're not ready to come out, you're not ready to come out. And they were really like legitimately afraid of how their parents, because a couple of them were from ethnicities where being anything outside of heteronormative and cisgender male would have been big, like ostracism for them. So I'd rather not say what, but like, you know, they could be very easily ostracized. Yeah. And I remember even a foreign student from a Middle Eastern country, I remember like he and I like passed one day, and like there's a thing called gaydar, and like my gaydar chimed, and I remember like he kind of like checked me more than he looked twice at me, and I was kind of like, what's going on here? And then I realized now, like I'm 47, so like that was like the 95, so like all these years later, 20, oh my God, all these years later,
sometime later,
probably sometime later, I hope to God he's living somewhere in the United States or Canada or like England where he can be out and be cool, because if he's back in Sharia law, he's going to have some problems. Yeah. And that's a thing. And I've met folks, I'm not me personally, but folks from Middle Eastern countries were like, they had to get out of there almost like a refugee to move to US, Canada, or the United Kingdom, because coming out was going to be a problem.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, that's a thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm glad Moonlight put a face on that finally.
Well, they put a face on it because, again, the reason I'm picking these movies, these particular movies, is because I think the important thing about them is how dynamic they make sexuality, you know, and intimacy, and just not just self-actualization, but what a minefield that is, because the reason I brought up Disney is because they always make, self-actualization and finding yourself just seem like, okay, yeah, they'll have to sing a song or whatever, but they always make it seem like it's just this, a straight, smooth road, and at the end, after the big song, everybody forgives you. And it's really not, it's a minefield. It's a minefield. And Hedwig and the Angry Inch definitely show the dynamics of finding yourself and how dangerous and painful that is. And then Philadelphia, same exact thing. I mean, AIDS, and when no one cares because you're gay and you had it coming, like these kinds of things. And then, Moonlight, because they're Black and they're poor and no one talks about that, that environment and what it's like to have to try to self-actualize when you definitely don't have enough money to be, quirky or, yourself, like you're supposed to be who everybody tells you to be. And so that's the thing that really attracted me about those three particular movies. But there are other movies. So if you haven't seen any one of those three, highly recommend it.
I'm happy you brought up Moonlight, and I'm glad the way you described it. And I would argue, especially the way you put it in words, Greg, because I felt that was an extremely good job, or great job, and better than probably what you would come across when you're reading synopsis about Moonlight, is that when you tell a story that powerful and deep and intimate, I would argue that actually, if you're reaching the right person, I'm just going to say human being, not a troll of a person who's trying to succumb to whatever, belief he thinks or he or she thinks they should belong to. But if you just look at it from a human being stance, aside from the publicity part of, like you said, you can't just go on and tell someone about the hookup, but all the other things leading up to it, I would argue that's very inclusive. A lot of us, regardless of who you are attracted to, your first couple romantic encounters are probably going to be closer to that than any sort of, mythical, or as you like to put out, the Disneyfication, which isn't all romantic straight movies out there. But I get what you're saying, and it's an apt point. But I would also argue how you made Moonrise was a great point in the sense that a lot of us went through that.
Well, I like that you brought up that Disneyfication there, Rashad, just because, you even have this monolithic company. And as I joked about a little bit at the beginning of this episode about, the Pride Month being now capitalized on, people saying, hey, we want gay people to spend our money. And then tying it back to what you and Mike said about the Hays Code and all the little sort of subtle nods through the years when maybe that didn't even have to be so subtle. But they finally, I forget who the name of the character who's got the crush on Gaston, what they did in the live action one, they actually finally said, yes, as a matter of fact, that's the case, where it had sort of been always there for the longest time. And of course, a certain segment of moms just, couldn't handle that.
That was weird to me because I mean, first of all, through a certain lens, there's gay characters in every Disney movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
In the certain lenses.
And the thing that got me, and the thing that got me was, no, fuck that. Gaston is gay.
I mean, there's a point to be said that, and you could even talk about the conflict. Yeah, you could even talk
Gaston
about him,
is gay.
Hate, self-hatred.
Gaston is gay. Yeah,
to a John Wayne Gacy level there. I mean, it's just you could certainly dissect it. But all right, well, we got a little. I feel like we got really thoughtful and deep there for a second.
Oh, and shout out to John Waters.
Oh yeah. I met that guy really fast. It was kind of funny. I was walking past GBH. He was walking out of the building into his car. I was walking from the gym. I just looked at him like, I love your work. And he just looked at me, had the sweetest smile, said thank you, and got in the car. And I think he appreciated the fact that I kept walking and I didn't try to stop him. And I didn't try to throw some bullshit at him. And if anything, I think his thank you was more for that than me complimenting his work. I got the producer in the ear telling me that I need to wrap it up. So I'm going to wrap it up. This is going to be the fastest one. The only movie there's so many different movies we can cover. Quick personal story, even though I got a lot of personal stories that led me to being who I am now, which I would argue are thankfully a bunch of good ones, haven't always been a good person, but personal growth is for all of us. But I remember it's, let's say 99. I'm in the locker room. Unfortunately, not exactly the place for anyone who didn't want to, not be homophobic.
I disagree.
Yeah, and a shocker, right? Not to be fair, not every football player in the locker room was homophobic, but it definitely was starting to become a course. And I remember like a week ago in sociology, I was a sociology minor. We came across stats of like populations in the country, and one was like 1 out of every 10 men is a homosexual. So I'm listening to these guys go on and on and on about, being homophobic and being proud about it. And I just looked at them, and finally I'm like, hey guys, hate to tell you, but there's like 90 of us in this locker room, and the stats are 1 in every 10. So I'm gonna tell you right now, you're making fun of one of you right now. Immediately I got told to shut the fuck up and get, blah, blah, blah. So it's funny because you move a couple of months later and The Wire is out. I know we're going to talk about movies, and we are talking about movies. However, this TV show, The Wire's out. Mm-hmm. A lot of people that I went to school with and played football with were from Baltimore, Maryland area. They were, for whatever reason, very proud of the TV show. It was a great TV show, so I get it. And they use a lot of people from Baltimore area, so I get that part too. But obviously some tough, ornery, not great individuals in it. And of course, the much heroic and celebrated Omar is in this series, and a lot of guys, were kind of moving towards trying to be masculine like Omar. So imagine the surprise, the love and the feeling and the joy I had when Omar finally got to show who Omar was in the series, and watching all these guys who love to push their masculinity up to the image of or the altar of Omar, only to find out that, oh yeah, maybe it's not a good idea to be homophobic, because could be one of your heroes. But moving past that, I would have to say what kind of kicked me off in understanding, even though it probably had nothing to do with any gay person whatsoever, but it was seen that way through the, I would say, somewhat ignorant lens of the straight person, quote unquote, is the legend of Billie Jean.
Oh yeah.
One of those first moments where while I'm watching, I'm like, there's something not connecting with why this woman, this girl, has so much hate, why her family has so much hate directed towards him, why the whole town is against him. When the series of events, spoiler alert, because the movie came out in 1985. So I think Helen Slater, God bless her, is still around, but she's like 70. So I don't know if I'm pushing any spoilers, but unfortunately, this woman gets raped. She still doesn't necessarily retaliate, but she ends up having to fight for her life. She ends up shooting someone. Her little brother gets his stuff messed up, and it becomes like this huge nationwide chase for her, because they're supposed to be these fugitives who are horrible people who did all these things to these upstanding people. Meanwhile, the true story is the upstanding people were the horrible people who are just completely mean towards these individuals. And then you toss in the image of what first time I saw, because I was like 5, 6, maybe, first time seeing a woman with completely short hair rocking it in almost a masculine way. Not necessarily she was masculine looking, but almost look at this sort of approach that men always got to have, which is, yeah, this is how I look, and get over it. If you have a problem, I'm about to kick your ass. And seeing that kind of kicked off my thought process of, one, people can be different, and two, sometimes when you're seeing people being completely abused and mistreated, it probably maybe has nothing to do with that person. Maybe start looking at the people around them, and maybe start breaking down those individuals and start asking yourself, who do you want to be like? Do you want to be like this renegade who actually is in the right and just trying to live their life and frankly got pushed into circumstances, versus the people who are, quote unquote, the upstanding individuals who, obviously were horrible individuals, and who the hell wants to be like those people, regardless of who you're attracted to. So every time I hear Bat Benatar, it's sad, because every time I hear Love is a Battlefield, I think of that movie. But That's not on the soundtrack. It's actually
it's
Invincible.
not, no. Invincible. Exactly.
Invincible. That's on the soundtrack, which is just as good too. I had some other movies, Women's a Brewster's Place, a bunch of other things, but I'm making Josh squirm because I'm way over time. So I'll just stop my rant by doing that. And thank you, Mike, for being here.
You're welcome. This has really been a lot of growth here today. Thank you. The other thing I was going to say was about gay character, straight actors playing gay characters and how brave that was. The thing I liked was that Sean Hayes kept playing gay characters, but he doesn't actually say if he's gay or not. But like he and his friends go hang out in like Northern California or something, and it's sort of like no kidding. And he's not like the kind of person who had to suddenly explain this is why I don't have a wife. It was sort of just he's not really out or in. He's just Sean Hayes. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I think, that was.
Yeah, thank you. And this is once in a lifetime to be here. And if I ever get invited back, I would appreciate it. Josh, we are Wellesley Hills kids who were not preppy or varsity athletes. It's a bond that you have, and it's great to have you. And it's great to be. It's glad that social media got us the traction to be back in touch again. And Rashawn and Greg, what an absolute pleasure it's been to be with you.
Mike, the feeling is the same,
and
I'm gonna go ahead and shoot my shot and say I would love to have you on this podcast a lot more. Not for any other reason other than the fact that, like I said, you were one of the gatekeepers of Blockbuster. I want you on here talking about movies. And I want to hear that insight. I want you to just drop a movie on us and all of us just go crazy. I think there's so much meat that you bring to this that I'm just beyond excited, man. And so you come on anytime you want to, bro.
I'd love to.
I also support Mike bringing his meat. I think that's a fantastic idea. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we like I said, we have a theme going. Like next time it's supposed to be TV shows, same Pride time, same Pride channel. If you want to come through. Yeah. Okay.
I'd love to be on because I got my 2 cents. I'll give you a teaser. If I get invited back, I had a professor in grad school at UMass Dartmouth who wrote a book on reality television, which I always found to be exploitive. But there was one time there's a few times that they use it right, and that's getting gay and lesbian folks and trans folks or non-binaries, whatever, LGBTQ plus folks on television to be in the national narrative. So that's my teaser trailer.
That's fantastic. No, I think that's a great place to start. And I think we I totally agree with you, man. We have a real bond of being, from the swells, and the Blockbuster, without a doubt. And I'm honored to have you on here. Quite honestly, listen, we wanted to do this. We want to do this as a theme. And I did reach out to you because I felt comfortable reaching out to you. I felt you could, I know you could comport yourself well, but I also knew you knew the subject matter. Like I knew you would bring a lot of a lot of the information that you brought today. I had no doubt. So I hope you know that. I hope I value that because I see a lot of what you write on social media. I know you and I talk a fair amount, on the DMs and talking about stuff, and you show me the material you're working on or things you're thinking about, and both of us have had a gummy or two. And I appreciate that. I appreciate having you around so much. I hope, those years were a bit of a blur now. They're starting to blur out a bit, but I certainly hope I was an affable companion, while I was with, withholding movies like Randall, because that's how in my best, I was never as cool as Randall, but in my head, especially after Clerks came out, oh yeah, you'll be missed.
Josh, I remember. I remember watching Randall and resenting Randall because Randall was rattling off names of filthy films, and Blockbuster was open until midnight, 7 days a week, and ooky people would come in from 11 to 11:59 looking for something a little bit more risque than Porky's, and they're looking for Behind the Green Door or something, and I was like, we don't have those.
Nah, not the Blockbuster.
Pre-COVID, no. I just want to cover myself in hand sanitizer in a pre-COVID sort of way.
You're gonna have to go down Route 9 to Video Craze in Framingham.
Oh, there we go.
So I've heard.
That's yes. So you've
So I've
heard.
heard.
Not that you grew up next to there and we're, trying to hang out by the door, but we know that. But well, Mike, thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you all Steam people for coming back in here. It is
Thank
June.
you.
It is Pride Month. We're loving it. Show your pride, quote unquote, and show your pride in the Steam, gentlemen. Oh, talk about just jumping on that bandwagon, trying to get that
Boom.
trying to get that corporate vibe going. But hop on over, join us on the socials. We got the Steam Gentleman podcast. We got on Facebook. We got Do You Even Steam Bro on Instagram. We have a Twitter account of the Steam G's. Rashawn been making some very good points out there. Mike, I know you're active on Twitter, so hop on there, man. Feel free to.
I will. I'll get back right on it. No problem.
Yeah, and definitely tweet out to your friends that you're on this episode. We're looking forward to it. We'll drop tomorrow. And as always, we beg of you, we plead with you, we ask you to head on over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes, rate and review us. Gonna do that little sign off that we usually do. Rashawn, you got anything exciting going on for the rest of the week?
Caught me off guard. I thought we were going to cut as soon as you're done. So I stopped thinking a long time ago. Mike, like I said, I don't give a shit what the subject is. You come on this podcast and you talk movies, my man. I want to see you again on this podcast.
Loving it.
Thank you. I will hold you to that. And I really, Rashawn, I've enjoyed this conversation with you, and I will make that happen every time I get invited back.
Fantastic. All right, Greg, what you got going on? Anything special for the rest of the day?
For the rest of today, not a thing.
Not a thing. Anything exciting for the week you're looking forward to?
Oh, absolutely. Because tomorrow is an auspicious day. Tomorrow is the day of Prince. Yes, indeed. Tomorrow is the day of Prince. It's Prince's birthday, so we will be having some celebrations at a friend's house. They will dig, if you will, my picture. And that's probably the biggest thing I got going this week.
You got the purple and the frills, don't you? We know you do.
Actually, I do.
Yeah,
it's actually true. I do. Yeah, it's
Hells yeah.
true. But yeah, it should be a national holiday. Absolutely.
I think we can continue to work on that. I think
don't look. Actually, no, let's not, because they just started to roll out with Juneteenth. A lot of people are going to be walking around talking about it. They have no fucking clue what they're talking about. It's only within a matter of time, probably less than a decade, the way we're going between now and a decade from now, where people are going to be like, yeah, the national holiday Juneteenth is about Prince's birthday.
I actually have no problem with that.
I do.
All right, I can see it happening.
I think black people would be like, all right.
No.
Yo, you break out the purple drink on Prince on Juneteenth.
Okay. I'm just gonna.
And we can have purple drink.
No, but since you said that, State Farm, zoom in camera. State Farm, don't think I ain't pay attention to you little punk asses with the commercial with Trey Young, and he's got a big ass 2-liter or probably 3-liter of grape soda on his cart while he's going through his little BJ scenario. You fuckers, you guys, and you roll it out in
Purple
June
drink.
too. You think you're slick. It's NBA. It's June. You're rolling out the black basketball player with a big ass fucking gallon of grape soda. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna have some grape soda, but yeah, I don't want you throwing it in my face.
Still.
It's like when you see watermelon and fried chicken. It's like, who the fuck doesn't like that?
I've always said that. I don't.
Deeper discussion.
Never got it.
You want hot sauce?
I'm
Yes.
still gonna.
Damn it.
Motherfucker. I'm still gonna.
Mike, Josh, what are you guys up to?
We just getting through this week, and lots of silliness with paperwork and the various stuff with that going on. Foolishness going on with the bank. Nothing too exciting. We'll get through this week. Kids are almost done with soccer, so okay, we get a little more time in the weekends back. Yay, good times and then soon summer break. Mike, thank you so much for coming on. Now I can't thank you enough. This was awesome, dude.
I'm going to hold you three gentlemen in esteem as a play on the title, and you guys take care.
All right.
Dude,
Well,
Mike.
All right.
Later on.
we're going to
Thanks,
sign
guys.
off
Bye-bye.
here, but in the meantime, this is Josh the Birdman telling you to keep your heat up and keep your head of steam on.